This is Bob Odell with Root Source. And Victoria, thank you so much for the interview that you just did. And I just wondered if you might be able to give some advice. There are a lot of Christians. There's a lot of people that love Hebraic roots, the Jewish roots of our faith. There's a lot of great ideas out there. You are in a position, you and your husband are in a position to bless certain activities. I'm not asking this with respect to, I don't want anyone to send them an email or whatever on the basis of this interview. What I want is, I wonder if you can advise us, advise viewers. Let's say you are living in a community and there is a couple that has some means to be able to bless. How do you think about, I'm thinking, what advice would you give to people who might have a good idea and that it might require a bit of funding? What should they be thinking about when they consider approaching somebody who might be able to help?
Well, God gives us certain mandates in His Word, and He talks about He looks for those who are, giving him a drink of water, or feeding him, or visiting him in prison, and when you think about the sick, and so basically what we do as unto the Lord. And He says, and these that you do to the least of these my brothers, you've done it unto me. And so when I think of His brothers, I think of those people who, of course, are Israel. I think of the Jewish people, and I think it's not an accident that He says that. He's looking at how we are treating His brothers.
Yes.
When we look in Romans, we are to show them mercy because God showed us mercy. How do we show mercy? But to, give where it's needed. You think of all the different terrorist attacks that happen there. You think of the different oppression and the persecution that comes to the Jewish people. Sometimes it's just coming to alongside of them and saying no more of this. We have different advocacy efforts that we do, like the March of Remembrance, where we stand with Israel concerning the Holocaust, and we say, these were the atrocities that were done in the name of Christ.
You don't just send dollars there. You stand
time,
physically,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Take your time and energy. Yes,
absolutely.
Okay.
But there are so many different organizations that really are helping and doing something for the aid of Israel and for the Jewish people. Now, I caution, not all of them are, I would consider worthy, I guess you would say, because maybe there's a lot of waste. We vet all of our, ministries that come our way. Of course, we give grants out to different ministries that meet certain criteria. And so there is that aspect where, you really have to look at, the ministry that they're doing, and, how the funds are appropriated, and if there's good, management of that aspect. And, again, how much of an impact are they making? Sometimes the impact is very small, sometimes it's very great. And so we look for those great impact ministries. Although there are some small ones that need help for, they just need a roof, or they just need, to buy Bibles.
Okay.
And so we do a lot of project-oriented grants as well, just to help those smaller ministries too. We also think that, when you consider the great ministries that have a lot of money that come in, I'm just going to pull one out. This is not really a ministry that focuses on Israel, but United Way. Oh my gosh, how much money comes into an organization like that?
Right.
And we really don't know how it's appropriated because there's so much administrative costs and so many different things. So, there are certain ministries maybe that, you feel like, there's a lot of money coming into, but one of them touches your heart. There's another one that really connects to you. When I look at certain ministries that have really touched us, like Barry and Batia Siegel in Israel, in Jerusalem, what they're doing in the way of humanitarian aid, and how they are reaching out to the nations and educating the churches on how they can be a part. I stand behind an organization like that. I mean, they have all that information readily available for you to see how their funds are used. So, definitely I would check out and vet the different organizations, because there's some of them out there that just,
Right.
want to take your money, and it's used for other agendas. There's also the idea, and this, I'm going to say this, I mean, we're being candid. There are certain, I think, Christians who really want to connect to the Jewishness of their faith, and they just don't know how to do it.
Yes.
And so a lot of them just they fall in love with the identity of Judaism, and they want to connect maybe by getting a yarmulke and a talit and put a mezuzah on their door,
Yeah.
and they like all the stuff that comes along with it, and they begin to change the way they dress, and that learning the ways of the Jewish people is good, but a lot of it is kind of based on just a show. The main thing is God is looking at your heart, and you may be a Gentile, you don't have any Jewish blood in you whatsoever,
Right.
but God has put a connection, to how He's blessing you to His family, and you don't have to look like them, do the same things that they do to bless them. And in a way, I kind of think they appreciate the fact that you keep your Gentileness. But by the same token, there are times whenever I feel like on Yom Kippur, I went to the Western Wall and I had my talit, I was under
Yes.
it, and I felt compelled to do that. And there are times whenever we have a mezuzah on the door as you walk in. But we understand it's not the stuff. I mean, all that points to a relationship that you have with God. Touching that mezuzah is saying, God, I want you in my heart. I want you in the place where I dwell. But we can know that He's there, and we can ask for His presence without having a mezuzah on the door. You know what I'm saying? And we can get into our time of prayer without having a talit over our head. Although there are times whenever we can definitely do that. You don't make that a part of your identity. And I think that,
So you're saying certain groups that might want to, acquire funds for helping Israel, sort of, there's kind of a flag raised if there's too much identity being wrapped up in it.
I think it can be.
That's interesting. I think it's a very very insightful.
Whenever I see different Messianic congregations, and there's more Gentiles in it than there are Jewish people, and basically what a Messianic congregation is a Jewish synagogue that has filled in the blank as to who Messiah is.
Mm-hmm.
And we as Gentiles will come along and connect to them, and we'll learn their ways. But we still have to realize that this is a way for these Jewish people to connect to their Judaism,
Mm-hmm.
Without becoming a Christian. Just because you received Yeshua as Messiah, if you're a Jew, doesn't mean you have to become a Christian. And Christians who want to learn, this is what we're doing here. We're wanting to learn the ways of Yeshua, but it's not under the guise of rabbinics, for us to take on all the rabbinic, understanding and apply it to our what's Judaism today.
Yes.
We want to understand the Judaism of the first century.
Yes.
What was it like then? And so I believe that Christians who really have a heart to connect in that way will kind of connect in educational aspects of getting this word out, and not let it be a show, not letting it be a place where I want to look like a Jew, but to just have a heart, a Jewish heart. And there's a lot of ways that you can help in that regard without having to look a certain part.
Right.
We can facilitate the Messianic community. We can facilitate the advocacy efforts concerning Israel and the ministries that are there without having to be somebody that we're not necessarily supposed to be.
Okay. So let me just put a hypothetical to try to get down to something that I think might be helpful to some viewers. Let's say there's a couple in a certain city in California. We don't know them. They have an idea that is related to Jewish roots of the faith. it's a good idea. It is high impact. It doesn't need a lot, and it could do a lot. Mm-hmm. There is, in their own community, somebody who is known to support certain Hebraic type ministries. Mm-hmm. If you were to advise that couple in that California city, what would you do if they said, Victoria, how would we approach these people in our own community? Because we're not like that. We don't know. We've never pitched an idea. What would you advise somebody like that to do?
Well, there are a lot of different organizations that you can connect to, and I think be a part of that shows your camaraderie or mm-hmm. your friendship concerning the Jewish community. We are right now getting ready for the March of Remembrance, which will be here in April, and this is a time where the Jewish community as well as the church comes together for a time to remember. And we have a Holocaust survivor. We have sometimes a liberator from a certain camp. A repentant Nazi descendant wow. will come, and we are, what we're wanting to accomplish is forgiveness and reconciliation. And we can't, I'm sure that the German people today feel such especially the Christians, feel such a burden from what their ancestors have done to the Jewish people. The guilt is really not on them, because they can't take the guilt of that. They didn't do those particular things, but they want to do something. So a lot of times it depends on where you're coming from. If you are from if you're a German Christian, or if you felt like there's things that you need to make restitution for.
Yes.
So this is a good opportunity. There's all kinds of other things too that we can do together with the Jewish community, having symposiums or inviting the rabbis in to talk and understand one another. It's not a situation where we're trying to convince them of Christianity or right. vice versa, them trying to talk us out of Jesus, but to start having some dialogue and to open up and be honest and explain why you feel the way you feel, and what we can do to maybe help smooth that out. And a lot of times it's it wasn't the Christians that are today that did the atrocities of yesterday,
right.
but they need to know where we stand, that we don't agree with
right.
it, and the only way to know that is for us to have communication and,
wow.
and come together.
So what I hear you saying, you've kind of sparked some summary ideas. If people have a great idea for how to do Jewish Roots or some impact program, your advice is, don't just focus on your own ministry idea. Mm-hmm. Get involved in the community. Get involved in your community. Mm-hmm. Be a friend to other ministries mm-hmm. that are already moving along. Don't just try to build your own little isolated thing. Get involved in the flow. Contribute to others. And then, if I'm hearing right, maybe out of the relationships that you build in that, they might connect with people who are interested in supporting other things, and then look at their own particular idea.
Well, actually, yes. To get involved in the things that are already out there is very important, and there are things out there.
Right.
Sometimes you got to do a little work on the internet to find out where they are and how you can be a part of it. But I also think that people can do some things on their own. The fastest growing, I guess you would call it, it's not really a denomination, but the fastest growing Christian movement right now is in the house churches. And so I think people are coming to a point in their life where they're saying, I don't agree with this,
yeah.
the church, especially a lot of the mega churches where they feel like they're just a number, and they don't feel like they're
right.
really contributing right. or being recognized
right.
or being ministered to and discipled. I think many of them, even in the mega churches, are wanting to have the more intimate Bible studies or care groups or whatever that maybe some of these churches provide. But if not, even your own Bible study, and then having various speakers come in, those who have Hebraic studies, you can get on the phone, you can call some, and many of them are willing to come. I know that I all the time I get phone calls, and I'll all end up going to a home study or a Bible study and sharing, and then connecting them with other people as well.
So you're adding to that. There's a lot that can be done without trying to acquire funding. Just go do it.
Yeah.
And be open-hearted. Try to bring in others. Maybe be the person that helps bring someone to your city. That is a way to, again, helps establish your interest and to learn and everything else.
There's so many books out there. Dr. Booker has written quite a few books that I think are really good for the layperson. He's able to lay things out in such a way that is understandable, even though he's a brilliant scholar. And that takes some brilliance right there to be able to teach us. Right?
It's hard to explain things easily, simply. Yes.
But he does, and you can take these books like the Miracle of the Scarlet Thread, or Jesus in the Jewish feast, or the Feast of the Lord, biblical feast. It's called Jesus in the Biblical Feast. You take these books, and you're able to have Bible studies and use these books as the means by which you get this information out, and it makes the people thirsty for even more. And believe me, there's a lot of it out there because it's a move of God. I believe it's a providential movement of God. I believe that God is taking the Greco-Roman mindset away and instead giving us this Hebraic understanding of Jesus in his first original context. And it's, like I said, crossing denominational lines. People are wanting this. It's a grassroots movement of the Spirit. And by the same token, I feel like he's also moving among the Jewish community, and maybe not being so rabbinical minded that says, oh, you can't talk to Gentiles, you can't have a table fellowship, and realizing that doesn't line up with what the Torah is saying.
Yes.
We're supposed to be a light to the nations. How can we connect to the Christians? How can we connect to those who really want to connect to Israel, the ones that really want to understand the Torah, the ones that are really understanding their first century roots and following a Jewish Jesus,
yes,
and not this one that looks like an Italian or Norwegian or whatever we've created him to look like.
Right.
I think one of the biggest revelations that our Jewish friends are having is that, hey, Jesus was very Jewish. But the church has made him into someone from the nations.
Right.
And so it's an effort, I think, that God is orchestrating. We just need to ask him, how do we get into the flow of this? And because he's coming back, and there is a Jewish expectation of a Messiah. There is the Christian expectation of Messiah. And, Ezekiel is very clear that he's going to set up his kingdom there in Israel, and the word will go forth from Zion. And that God is going to pour a spirit of grace and supplication upon Israel and upon Judea. And we just need to, as Christians, realize that God has got a plan, not only for the nations, but he's got a plan for Israel.
Yes.
And Israel becomes, like I said before, center stage in the Akrit Hayamim, which, by the way, Akrit Hayamim is what's translated as the end of days. But in English, we don't have the luxury of the inference of Akrit Hayamim. It's actually an end of an era. If there's an era, that means there's another era afterwards. So an age afterwards. So what is this? What is the end of this era, or what is the era all about? The era that's coming to the end is the one where man governs himself, where the nations are governing themselves, where there's a world leader eventually that will govern the world. That is going to come to an end, because what's happening is the Messiah will come, set up his kingdom, and the government will be on his shoulders, and his word, his ways will go forth from Zion into the nations, and the nations will learn of his ways, and they will agree and receive the law that comes forth from his throne. He becomes the ruler, the King of Kings, and the Lord of Lords of planet Earth. And it's the Tikkun Olam, where all things are restored. The government is restored. Israel is restored as the head of nations, and the creation itself is restored.
And that is the story that we're all trying to find our part in, and which is really the ultimate aim. We're not trying to advise people on how to get funding. We're really trying to advise people on how to set themselves into the story of all stories.
It's the
to
culmination.
be part of it. The culmination.
The culmination
That's
of the
great.
kingdom. That's the whole purpose and point while you were even born, was for God's purposes to bring his kingdom to this earth, where he marries the earth, where the kingdom of heaven marries the kingdom of this world, of what we see. And we become a new creation in Messiah. You know, we become it's the garden being realized, you know, where we have that relationship with God as Adam and Eve did, and all around us is restored. The thorn and thistle's taken away, and it's the Gan Eden again. It's the Garden of Eden, where all the whole creation is groaning, waiting for the restoration of all things. And planet Earth is his destination. You know, we kind of think as Christians it's heaven, and it's not. Heaven is the place that until he comes, that when you die, your presence will
You stay.
be in.
Yes,
yeah.
until.
But his focus is to bring his kingdom here.
That's right.
And so that's a revelation for a lot of Christians right there.
That's right. Well, that's a great place to end. We're ending at the beginning, a new beginning, and talking about that. And so thank you for your
You're
advice. Really appreciate it. And all right, I hope you enjoyed that, and we'll leave it there until next time. This is Bob Odell from Root Source saying shalom.